Well, thank you for having me. My name is Michelle and my pronouns are she, her. I work as a speech-language pathologist in early intervention in the Tri-Cities and New Westminster. I also have previous experience working in acute care with adults, and I'm currently certified to work in Canada and in the United States of America. So here is today's timeline. So I'll talk about my time at SFU, where I've received a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Linguistics. I'll talk about my time at UBC, which is where I did my 2 years master's program to become a speech-language pathologist, also known short as SLP. And then I'll talk about my time working as a SLP. So I've had the chance to work in numerous organizations and can talk to that a little bit. Okay, so my time at SFU. So I have pictures and lots of text for those who are unable to make it. And when I was talking to the LSU team about what everyone wanted to hear, they wanted to know what I did at SFU, what was helpful, and what helped to pretty much help my experience or readiness and application for the UBC program. So one was I volunteered as a research assistant in the Language and Brain Lab with Dr. Yu Wang. And there I was able to learn to use particular programs. And in all the research labs here, you have graduate students who are working on their research project or thesis. And so I was able to help with the trials or sort of more of that gritty work. And just being able to see behind the scenes and how that transpires. And whenever there's those posters where they're wanting participants, you're sort of in that background, being able to see how that unfolds. And during my time at SFU, I also worked part-time as a recreational instructor. I volunteered for some groups. So here at SFU, I joined the Toastmasters Club, which is still running every Wednesday at 6:30, and I was an executive member. So working on public speaking skills, a lot of improv table topics. My husband and I actually come back every now and then because we help to, I guess, the next group to form. And so it's quite nice to come back every now and then. I was a English as an additional language peer educator. So that's where you get paired up with someone who wants to work on their conversational skills in English. And really you meet up once a week, talk for about an hour, and then go to your respective classes. And out in Surrey, I also volunteered at a aphasia group. So for adults who've had a stroke, but now still have some communication difficulties, it's a place for them to get together and to socialize. And we're there to help with that conversation piece. And then as a recreational instructor, I had the opportunity to really work with different populations, different ages. And I think that really helped to set or let me know on, if I'm going to be working with individuals with speech delays or speech difficulties, who do I like working with in general? Do I like working with adults? Do I like working with school-age kids, preschool kids? And I think knowing that ahead of time before going in really helped. I'll say I'm a pretty easygoing person. I had a chance to work with everyone and I enjoy working with everyone. And I think some tips is when your professors say to attend their office hours, you should really do it. Particularly if you're interested in applying for programs after your bachelor's. A lot of these programs ask for reference letters, and a lot of those reference letters will come from your professors. And so whether you just go and ask questions about the project, homework, kind of building that relationship, it is also their job to write reference letters. And so don't feel that you're annoying them or anything, but I think it's important to establish that relationship, especially if you're taking a lot of their coursework. And then of course, I went to Rita, linguistic advisor, just to make sure that I had the right courses, just that support in general. And she always has great feedback and advice, particularly for students who want to go to the UBC program. So here's my time at UBC. I have lots of pictures. So in the left top corner or on the left side, I'm in Vanderhoof for my pediatrics practicum. Vanderhoof is up in northern BC. It's actually the geographical center of BC. That's sort of their logo. And then in the middle, I have my student ID card from when I was at the hospital in Prince George. In the right corner, there was 7 of us in Prince George, so we ended up doing dorms there. And then in the bottom right, it's just me and the SLP team there at the hospital in the kitchen. So at UBC, it's a 2-year program. And there's coursework and 4 practicums that you do. 2 of them of which you have to do outside of the Lower Mainland. And that's the incentive because the program is subsidized in terms of cost. And so you have myself going up north to Prince George Vanderhoof. I had peers who went to Salmon Arm, to the interior. Sometimes Abbotsford is considered outside of the Lower Mainland, especially if you live in Vancouver. It's quite a commute. And so in the program at the time too, I know they've expanded some seats in Victoria, but we had 36 of us, and we also had coursework with 6 audiology students. Yeah, so at UBC, I would say the first year was almost like high school again. So it's coursework, Monday to Friday, almost like 6 hours a day. We actually had our own assigned lockers, which was pretty nice. A lot of group projects, so a lot of group Facebook chats with the course labeled. And if I could provide any advice for those who go into the program, is really trying to maintain that school life balance. And because school it's almost intensive again, all the studies that you do. And I know when I was an undergrad student, I did almost all the readings. I was very academic. And then going into the program, I thought, I need to actually prioritize the readings that I do and really just doing the necessary readings. Because I know a lot of myself and my peers who went into the program, we all come from that mindset, because the program's competitive to get into. You work really hard, right? You're gonna see if you can continue that pace. And for me, I couldn't keep that up. And really it was just, it's one assignment, get it done, go on to the next. And the program there is really there to support you. They want you to succeed. And so I think it was great that for those who might have been struggling a little bit, they were able to get that help. I think what really helped was participating in different activities. So the picture on the left, we had participated in a dragon boat race. I think we did okay. It was a lot of our first times. Me and I think 12 of us decided to do recreational soccer. So we would play soccer in the evenings. One time played in the snow. And then the picture on the right are 2 of my really good friends. So they're actually getting married next year and I'm going to their weddings. And so what's been really great from the program is creating, lifelong friendships and still staying in touch, because you're in that room for so long, a lot of hours per day. And I think really, I think all of us understand the work and dedication we did during that program. And then I think also too, with those of us who go into the program, we're so, again, academically inclined to get those top marks. And for me, after the first semester, I told myself, as long as I can pass and I can keep going, that's really okay. So that was my experience with UBC. It's a really nice campus. I'll say they have more food options, but I do like my roots here in SFU for sure. I did have a couple of friends in the program who were at UBC first, and I thought, no, I think, SFU and then UBC, but I had to go to UBC for the master's program. All right, so I'll go into the work that I did. So when I graduated in 2020, I actually decided to go back up to Prince George where my practicum was, because one of the SLPs is going on maternity leave. And so her position came up and it was temporary. So I actually filled in that position and decided to take that jump. I only went because I already knew the team. I'd been there before. And so I was there for close to 2 years. So as an SLP in the acute care, your primary role is to work with individuals who might have swallowing difficulties, whether it's a result of a stroke or any other health condition. Sometimes it could be age due to older age or other complications that might arise. And so typically in the hospital, you're seeing them at bedside, you're trialing different textures and liquids to see what diet is safe for them to consume. And sometimes you can't see what's going on because, and so if you aren't able to see what's exactly going on, SLPs in acute care, we actually do imaging. And so it is an advanced competency, meaning you do have to do extra education and training on it, and you're supervised by your team. And so You can see the one where it looks like an X-ray and you kind of see like a black liquid down. And so what we do is we mix it with barium powder so it shows up on the X-ray. So we can see if the food or drinks are going safely down the throat or is it going into the airway. And we can try like different strategies to see what's safe for them. Another type of imaging is through the nose. So it's like a camera that goes through the nose. And then you can see a patient's like vocal folds. So as they swallow, how that's going down. And they're in the hospital because we were a smaller team. I was pretty much everywhere in the hospital. So I would be in emergency, the internal medicine floors, rehab, so covering all the bases. As part of also being an SLP in acute care, you also work with individuals who acquire communication difficulties. So typically this after a stroke because it affects usually the language areas of the brain. So helping them to, whether it's to talk again, to write, to be able to understand spoken language, and working with their family members and the team. And at the hospital too, you are always working with the healthcare team. So working with the nurses, the doctors, even other therapists. So like physical therapists, occupational therapists. So there's a huge team that's involved and you're part of that puzzle and piece, as well as dietitians as well. And then I've posted some pictures below. So when you're an SLP or a clinician here in BC, you have to be registered with a college. So it's more like a legal thing, like liability. So I can't practice unless I'm registered with a college. And that college here in BC is the College of Health and Healthcare Professionals of BC. And then Northern Health is the health authority that I worked with in Prince George. I also, when I came back here, I also worked over in Langley. So they're part of the Fraser Health Authority. And typically when you're working as a clinician in the public, there's usually a union involved. So that's the Health Sciences Association. So a lot of physicians in public healthcare are associated with the union. And really what that is that the unions have like an agreement between the employer and us, just to make sure that the following like their wages, benefits, paid leave, and just so that you know, in addition to that. And then for those who are on the BC student loan forgiveness, it may have changed, it might have modified, so you'll have to double check. But when I was a student starting to work, if you are working with adults, so as an SLP, if you're working with adults in a rural area, and Prince George is considered rural, you actually get to be part of the forgiveness, the student loan forgiveness program. So every year that you're working in these areas, you get, I think it's 25%, 20 or 25%. So if you stay in that area for 5 years, you're pretty much forgiven for that loan. And then where I currently work right now, if you work with pediatrics, so children under 5 years, anywhere, it doesn't matter if you're here or in a rural area, you're also part of that student loan forgiveness program. So after 5 years, it's pretty much forgiven and you don't need to pay it back. And it's a lot of this for other clinicians as well. So if you work as a occupational therapist, physical therapist, social worker, a lot of these healthcare professionals, if you have a BC student loan, usually they're part of that forgiveness program as well. All right, so this is what I currently do in early intervention. And what that means is I work with children and their parents, age 5 and under. So just before they go into kindergarten, into the school system. So the reason why I made a change is when I came back here, I found that the teams were a bit smaller here in the hospitals. And so unfortunately, I personally got burnt out and I wanted to try something else. So whether it was maybe working casual in acute care in Fraser Health or maybe trying my hand at pediatrics. And so I'm currently working at a nonprofit organization. And essentially I work at a child development center. So not only is there SLPs, there's physical therapists who work with kids on their gross motor skills like walking, jumping, occupational therapists. So they help children with their activities of daily living, so self-care skills like feeding themselves, dressing, and also fine motor skills, so being able to write, be able to pick up small things, and so they deal more with the activities of daily living. So it's quite collaborative in that sense. And so when you're working with adults, you're working with them to try to get back those skills that they've lost. Whereas with pediatrics, you're working to help develop those skills at their pace. So a lot of the times it's working with the parents who really are they're the ones that are going to work with them at home. And I'm really there to help coach them on strategies to help develop their speech and language. So the areas that I work in right now, it's, play skills, social skills, maybe being able to understand language or use language. It might be their articulation, so they might not be very clear when they're speaking. And so helping for them to be understood by others. It could be also fluency skills. So if there's some stuttering, helping to educate parents on that and how to best support them. And and then there's also, formal assessments, informal assessments. I also do visits out at the office, in their home, or maybe at their daycare center, especially if they go full time. And right now, and you can see, it's funny, the picture with the room with all the toys. Sometimes my visits look like that. It looks chaotic. There's a tornado, there's toys everywhere. And I think what's really great about what I'm doing now is I get to play with kids. And surprisingly, I don't get bored. I thought I would get bored, but I actually have a lot of fun being able to see, the lens through their eyes, and being able to explore that. The picture in the middle is just my team. We were doing a cookie party for the families for winter time, so a chance for everyone to get together. And then the pictures on the right, so SHARE is where I work, Health Sciences Association. So the union also, you're a member of the union, and then also the student loan forgiveness program. I will say that based so far on my last 5 years of work, I do really like working with adults in the rehab setting because they're stable, they're able to participate and really work on their language goals. And then I also like working in pediatrics because you still have the child, but you also have the parent. So I still get that adult interaction as well and helping them with their child. I did do a practicum in the school age population, and I haven't worked with the school age population, but I think I'm currently happy with where I'm at. And of course, it's going to depend on everyone. I find that the schools, you're more independent. There's not much as a team. But of course, you have the summer hours. So you get spring break, summer, winter break off. And so there's pros and cons. And I think the most important, which I've already highlighted, is thinking about just who do you like to work with as a person? Who do you like to interact with? Because that's going to be important when you start working in a job, right? Do you like to work independently? Do you like working as a team? Do you like to be able to be flexible in your work, like working at the office or at home? I think those are important questions to ask yourself before you start working in your job. Yeah, so I just have a video. We did, my work site, we did promotional videos. So I won't play it here, but in the slides, you'll be able to press it. It's like a 1-minute video about what an SLP does, and then exploring that too. So I mentioned the schools, but there are various settings that an SLP can work in. So a child development center, which is where I work at, where there's SLP, physical therapists, occupational therapists, public health units, pretty much similar to a CDC, but it's just the SLP and audiologist. An audiologist is a professional that looks into hearing, the hearing status of people. You can work in the hospitals, you can work in long-term care, outpatient clinics. So typically for those who have been discharged from the hospital but need that follow-up because they're not as acute anymore, going to just to check on their health. Schools, also private practice, whether you work at a clinic or you work on your own. I know some of my colleagues, they work full-time at our site, and then they might have like a couple private clients on the side. maybe whether to keep their skills with other populations or having additional finances at the end. And then telehealth, which has been big since the pandemic, where you can work with clients over Zoom and so forth. Yeah, I think I added this slide. I know it's long, it's out far in the future, but things to consider when you're looking for a job in this position. You want to think about whether, you know, benefits are important to you, whether it's being able to have, you know, money to pay for counseling sessions or to see physical therapist yourself, and the collective agreement / union. So being able to have that support if you have any issues or conflicts with your employer, and if they're violating, you know, your contract and not paying you appropriately. Finances, I think that kind of goes in with benefits. So like what your wages are, you know, your pension, when you retire, something to think about as well. Flexibility. So whether you work at a job where it's a set like 8:30 to 4, or there's flexibility on when you can start and when you can end. Job advancement. So even if you work as a clinician or SLP, do you eventually want to go in a more supervisor role or management role where you're more managing a team? So things to consider about that too, because some positions or some organizations may not have that opportunity. And so something to think about long term. Paid leave, so being able, when you're sick, you're able to take that time off and still be paid for it. Same with paid leave vacation. Professional development. So even when you graduate as an SLP, you do need to take some education credits every cycle to make sure that you're up to date on the research, and making sure that you're still honing your skills as a clinician, because there's always new research that is coming out on how to best practice with clients, new research on different treatment methods. And so whether your workplace provides that time off for professional development or the opportunity to do it at their site. And then of course, team dynamics, which I've alluded to again, where are you do you benefit more from working independently? Do you benefit from working within a team, or maybe liaising with other team members? So thinking about your own work style and how that suits you. Sometimes you don't know until you start working and figuring that out. So personally, for me, which I've talked about, I like working in a hospital or in a clinic with other colleagues, so I like to bounce off ideas, ask questions, because sometimes every now and then there's a case where I still have question marks, so it's just getting advice from colleagues. Whereas if I were to work in the schools, I think myself, I would struggle with that, because you're quite independent and you're moving between schools to work. There is the opportunity to liaise with other SLPs in the district, but not as much. And so for individuals who really thrive on that autonomy and independency and like that summer schedule, I think that's great. And so figuring out what really works for you, and then going from there. So now we're at the Q&A section. I've put my work email on there. So if you have a question that doesn't get answered, or you ever have a question later on about being an SLP or how to get into it, you can feel free to connect with me. It's still fresh in my mind, so I think I can still help out. Yeah, so we'll see if there's any questions in the room or questions in the chat that I can answer now. Otherwise, my email address is there. I know that these slides will be sent out as well. So if you need my contact info again, you can let the LSU know. Yeah.
I'm just giving them a minute.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Awesome.
Here, I have a question.
Oh, you have a question? Okay.
You mentioned something about like how learning like x-rays and things are like extra. Is that part of like the master program? Is that something that you have to like actively ask to be trained on?
So the question was for the imaging, whether that's part of the program as part of the education. So it's not. So when you graduate from the program, you graduate as a generalist. So you have like, you've dabbed your feet a little bit in like early intervention, schools, adults. And so when you decide to work at a hospital, you get mentored. And if you want to get your certification to do imaging, whether it's the modified barium swallow, which is like the X-ray, or the it's short for fees, so like the scope through the nose. You'll be supervised when you do that. So for example, for the modified barium swallow, which is the X-ray, I would have to do, there's an application to the college, so I would do 10 supervised, where I'm with my mentor and we're doing it together, and we do the patient history, we do the assessment, we do the report, and then we go talk to the patient and the team about the results. And then I do 10 general, so I do that by myself, but I still have someone supervising just to make sure things are good. And then once I do my 20, then I send in my application. I think it's $100 to process. And then if the college thinks it's good to go, then I get my certification, and then I can do it fully independent. So there is a process, and it's through the college. Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah, so I will say that you'll have all the general knowledge from the program, but if you really want to specialize in area, that's going to happen on the job.
So to get into SLP,
Mhm.
like what degrees, diplomas, certifications do you need? Like in general, just for an entry level job?
So the question is what is required to get into, to become an SLP or to get into the program? So you have to do a master's program, and the only school that does it in BC here is UBC. Otherwise, you have to go out of province. So you have Alberta, you have Toronto. So you have to have a bachelor's, and depending on what school you want to apply for. So let's say, for example, I applied to UBC. I look at their their required coursework, and Rita is also a good person to go to as well. So you look at what coursework you have to take and the equivalent. So here at SFU, a lot of the times it's a lot of linguistic courses and psychology courses. So often a lot of students who go into the UBC program typically have like a major in linguistics or psychology. So those are the required courses. And then when applying for the program, schools like to see that, you know, not only are you doing well with academics, do you have research experience? So whether that's working as a research assistant, maybe you have a research project that you've done, and then just general work experience. So whether you volunteered or you work, because they want to see who you are as a person. And so in terms of school, it's a bachelor's, and making sure you have those required courses. So you would have to make sure you have those, and then talking to the student advisor to make sure that everything's lined up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Any questions in chat?
No, pretty quiet.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought your presentation was very comprehensive. Yes, it's very detailed. So my question is that you talked briefly about the specializations you can do after you get your master's. Could you talk a bit more about what kind of specializations there are?
Yeah. So the question is what specializations can you acquire after you graduate? So if you are wanting to work with adults, whether it's in the acute care, like hospital outpatient setting, there's a lot of specializations you can do. So there's the X-ray, which is the barium swallow. There's the scope. There's also one where you can work with patients with tracheostomies. So I never did it, so excuse if I don't have the correct knowledge, but it's for individuals who aren't able to breathe on their own, so they have like a tube in their throat. And if you want to be able to do like a swallowing assessment with them, you need to be certified to work with this population because they do come at a higher risk. So you can get one for tracheostomy. On top of the tracheostomy, some might have what's called a speaking valve. So I don't know the technicalities. I have a colleague who knows about all this. So there are certificates in those areas. So that's more adults in the acute care outpatient setting. Another population you can work with, which I actually didn't know was voice. So it's quite a niche where you're working with individuals that might have voice disorders, or they might have, structural abnormalities on their vocal folds, and a lot of voice therapy. So if you think about actors, or you think about maybe trans individuals who might want to sound more male or female, or those who've had cancer as well, you can work. I don't think it's a specialty, but it definitely is a niche where you have to be at a particular, I think there's only 1 or 2 clinics here in the Lower Mainland where SLPs specifically work on voice. And they work closely with ear, nose, and throat doctors. So that's one area of like specialization. Another one is BC Cancer. I don't think you need a certificate, but you're working with a population where with mouth, head and neck cancer. So definitely influences the ability for you to swallow safely. Usually there's like a lot of structural changes. And then for pediatrics, so for children who are diagnosed with autism, they get individualized funding, so from the government to form their own private team. So you can work to become an SLP, as a private SLP who's on that list, where families can use their funding to pay you. So that's another area as well. Other than that, as an SLP, if you're wanting to learn more about a particular area, there's a lot of like education or resources for that. But in terms of specializations, it's usually with the adult population, because it's usually tends to be a bit more medical.
Follow up on that. Where are these specializations done through? Like through the college?
The specializations?
Yeah, they.
Where is it done? So it's done at your work site. And then once you finish the process to apply for that specialization, you send that application to the college, because it's the college that says like, yeah, you're good to go, or no, you need to do this again. So you do it at your work site, and then it gets approved by the college afterwards.
We have a question here on the chat. Is having a communicative disorders assistant graduate certificate helpful for getting into the UBC SLP program?
I think that's a better question for your linguistics advisor. I think it would be a nice touch to the resume portion. From what I remember when applying, you have your letter of intent and a resume. And on that resume, you can indicate that. But I think in terms of coursework, you would have to double check with your advisor, but I think having that in your pocket is great because you can talk to it and then have it as relevant experience.
Oh, she says, thank you. Yeah, I think that is all the questions. So thank you so much. Right. So our next speaker is Linh. And I will help over there.
Bunch of food over there, so
Yeah,
feel free to
okay.
grab.
So we'll send to.
Wow, there's a lot of them. I'll like take the chance.
Yeah,
Well, we have.
I might snack after because I chew pretty loud.
You know, 4 more, and I know other people were looking forward to the recording because they're like, I can't make the time. So it's like, okay, that's.
Is it like the specific like date and time or just the time?
The date and time.
Oh, that's too
Because
bad.
they're like, they have volunteer at times.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically at this hour,
Yeah.
so.
Basically like an event going on in
Yeah.
Convocation.
Convocation Mall has something happening there.
It's very French when I walk past.
I think it might be the
Besides
French
the
program.
French. Okay.
It might be the French program. Yeah, because it was all French
Yeah,
translation and,
understand the signs. It looks like convocation.
yeah,
I'm not sure.
they have their own little pod.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, there we go. Okay, one.
I can't find it.
I think I have scissors. What's CJ? I see.
It should be fine. I don't think I have anything in that corner. So it should be perfectly fine.
Just move it.
Yeah. Give them a minute. Now.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
You have like spoons or I don't know.
It's okay, we'll just let her get started and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
After, thank you.
Great. Hello, all the in-person audience and the virtual audience. My name is Lynn. I'm currently working for a language assessment company. If you are an international student, or if you had to take English language exams, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. So yeah, here to talk to you about kind of my experience at SFU, what I found helpful, and also about my work. It's a bit of a niche area that many people might not think about when they think of linguistics. So, yeah, jump right into it. So, spacebar is no, it is not.
Yeah, it's
Oh. Arrow keywords. Okay. Hold on. Where's my- Well, I had transitions, but anyways.
It exported, when you sent it to me, it was a PDF.
What? Okay, well, if you open this in Google Slides, there will be transitions, and you can see the pictures behind it. But a little bit about me before we jump into like the linguistic specific talk. I am an international student from Vietnam. I came here in 2016. I came here thinking I was going to go into something teaching related. So I was in between either English, education, or linguistics. Linguistics was one that I knew the least about, so I decided to kind of try. And I enrolled in Ling 220 with Anne something last name, and 200 with Trudy Height, and I kind of fell in love. I don't know, I know when I graduated, Trudy was taking a sabbatical, so I don't know if she's back, but if she's back, highly recommend taking a course with her. She's a very excellent professor, just putting that out there. And then I graduated from SFU in 2020, April, in the midst of COVID. I had no convocations, I went around the school and took photos of myself. Girl couldn't do what she could do, I earned a degree. So yeah, and now I work for a language assessment company. I'm also a mom of a 2.5-year-old, and I run a little small crochet business that's turning a year old next month. So it's a little bit about me. My presentation is going to focus on 2 aspects of my time here at SFU. First is the co-op program, and the second is the certificate for teaching ESL. Yeah. So co-op, I did a full co-op and I got like a whole certificate for it. So for a full co-op, it's I believe 3 terms. I did 8 months at Paragon Testing Enterprises. They are a language assessment company that I ended up coming back and working full time. But I did co-op with them first for 8 months as a test research and development intern. I worked in kind of the operations department. So I did a bit of kind of content development as well as scoring. They used to be an in-office company, and they were very pro co-op students. So we had co-op students from SFU and UBC. I think usually every term there would be about 10 of us. So it was like actually a very, very fun and very linguistic related co-op opportunity. So it's a great experience. They also pushed all of us to do like a mini research project when we were there. So that was like good experience. I kind of get to know what, linguistic work is out there. And then my second, I guess, third term, but with a different organization, is as a research and engagement intern with the BC Water and Waste Association. It is very non-linguistic related, but it was an interesting one. I worked with like 5 other people, so I had plenty of room to just like take initiative. Whatever they had, they didn't have like manpower to do. It was like, yes, please give to me. So yeah, I did a whole bunch of stuff. I did like marketing and like worked with like CRM systems and like improved their annual survey and stuff like that. So it was like an interesting experience. I've learned that I really enjoy working in small teams, and that's kind of like the dynamic that I want to continue to pursue. So yeah, some takeaways from kind of my co-op. They didn't sponsor me to like promote them or anything. It's not required for a linguistics degree, but I would highly recommend it based on my own experience, especially with how kind of competitive the job market is now. I think it's good to kind of get your foot in the door a little bit. And also it's easier once you kind of see what is out there, you can kind of adjust your degree in the direction that you want to pursue. Right? If you say found like a linguistic related job like mine and you hated it, then maybe that's a sign, like you're only 2 years in, you can still change course. It's so much easier to do that now than once you've graduated. I will be honest, I've been trying to get back into school. I'm like, you know what, I could use, like a bit more, and like improve and stuff like that, but it's hard to kind of make yourself go back to school once you're already done. So I think it's always like good to kind of figure it out just a little bit ahead of time. And then you'd be satisfied kind of with what the end result of your degree would be. Second of all, extra income. Like they pay pretty well. I like managed to pay rent the whole time. With my co-op earnings. And with a bit of extra money to like put in my savings. So extra income. That's always a good benefit. And the third one is just connections. You get connections with kind of potential employers. I ended up back to Paragon because of my connections, and I'll talk a bit more about that later when I talk about what I do now. But additionally, if you end up at a place where there are other co-op students, you can also form connections with other people who are kind of in the same boat. And once you graduate, they might know of a job opening and they can always recommend you. So connection is never a bad thing. So yeah, and finally, it's a good break from school. I kind of just jump into this because I kind of just wanted a bit of a change, but I didn't want to spend my summer doing nothing for 4 months. So it's a good break from school. You kind of get to do things and feel productive, but not be super stressed out by all the academia. If you do decide to take like a course while you're studying, which I did and regretted, do take like 100, 200 level course. Don't take like a 300, 400, even if it's a single course. After your work day, you don't want to do anything to do with school, trust me. So 100, 200 level course, 1 course max, if that's something that you want to do. If not, just kind of use it as like a bit of a break. And then the other thing I have is the certificate to teach ESL. This is a program offered in SFU for, I believe the target is for students who have no experience in teaching and is pursuing their first degree. You get prioritized. if you've already graduated from another institution or from SFU and want to join in, you are kind of like put in the back of the wait list a bit. So something to keep in mind if you think that it is something that you're interested in, do think about it kind of now. You do need to apply and go through like a short interview with the person who's kind of leading that program. I believe it is now Claudia Wong, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Also received an email about it.
Yeah, so they are not taking any new students anymore. The program is shutting down for a little bit. Yeah, so,
Oh,
yeah, it's really sad because they didn't have a lot of registration. So keep plugging it, hopefully it'll come back.
they should.
I
They should
know.
come back. It's a pretty decent program. It's kind of rigorous at the end of it. So theory courses you can take regardless if you're in the program or not. I think students in the program get prioritized. But they do have like 400 level course specifically on like teaching and language education, language acquisition. But kind of the plus of this program is the two kind of more practical courses. One of them, you are in a kind of small 20, I would say, students max, and you're kind of doing a practicum, mock practicum to your classmates for that term. So you're pretending to teach. I had it with Cliff, and we actually had to teach each other a foreign language. And we, at the end of that class, all the students had to somehow grasp either the grammar or the, like, whatever the point of the class is, like that was like the ultimate like goal of that class. So it was like an interesting one. It's a bit awkward because you all know each other, but I would say if you do take that one, put some effort into it, because it's easier to mess up in front of your classmates than messing up in front of real students. And then the other one is the practicum, where they will send you to an ESL class in real life. You would be matched with, usually it's like a link class. They will try and match you to like your closest geographical location, but it is throughout the Lower Mainland. And there is a limited amount of classes, so do be prepared to travel. Yeah, I did my practicum at Mosaic out in Surrey, Guildford. It was like twice a week, 7 to 9 p.m. Traveling was not great in that area. But it was a good experience. You had like a sponsor teacher where you would observe for, I think, 25 hours. You will also get 10 plus hours of actually teaching in front of the class, and you will get kind of a review critique on all of your classes by your teacher, who can then kind of become your sponsor. The thing with the certificate, though, it is, you will get a certificate from it once you finish, but it is not recognized by TESOL Canada, so it is not a Canada-wide certificate. You do have to kind of jump through another hoop to apply for this. It's called the PLAR program, the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition. You essentially make your case that I have studied this many hours of theory, I have completed this many hours of teaching, I deserve kind of like standard level 1, 2. They have very clear guidelines on the TESOL Canada website, as long as you follow and just kind of market yourself, you know, like don't feel like you need to like keep under word count or anything like that. I had like maybe 10 plus, maybe 12 hours of actually teaching. But I kind of filled that application with like, I did all of this, I taught my classmates, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting professional standard level 2, which actually required 25 hours of teaching. So they are quite lenient as long as you kind of present yourself that you have the knowledge and the ability to do so. So there is like leeway. It's not like you have to have exactly 25 to get a higher level. So that's what I did during COVID when I was unemployed and trying to look for a job. So the break between graduation and like looking for work, that could be like a mini project, that's something that you could think about. And then the work that I'm doing now. So if you are an international student, you're probably familiar with IELTS or CELTIP or have heard about those before. That is pretty much what I do. I work in the internal team of Paragon, where we make the CELTIP and C.O.L.D tests. Both of those are English language proficiency exam. The CELTIP is for general immigration and citizenship purposes to Canada and to potentially Australia at this moment. And the C.O.L.D is an academic test, so kind of going to post-secondary, it would help with your application to kind of prove your English proficiency. So I work in the scoring department. As an internal member, I work with raters. They are the people who actually mark your tests. So I recruit them, I train them, certify them to become official raters, and I do monitor their performance, provide feedback, provide training if necessary, and that is pretty much what I do. We have about close to 500 raters for an internal team of, I would like to say, 8 people. So something that, you know, people might not think about all that much, but it's actually a fairly big, you know, linguistic area. If you're not internal, like being a rater is really good kind of part-time work that you can think about, where people are always looking for people to mark tests. So if you have like a strong foundation in English, and that's something that you're interested in having as like a side project, side job, that could be a potential kind of employment path that you can look into. Additionally, so in test operation, yes, there's scoring, there's also content development. This is the other side of the testing product where you create the test itself. You're working with item writers. Generally, they have to be have some language or linguistic education. So you're creating testlets. You're also working with making audio visuals. So sometimes working with voice actors or actors themselves. And yeah, creating good testlets, creating test content. So either internal or as a contractor, those are both very linguistics related as well. Scoring, I've talked about kind of my side of things, but there is also the system side of things. So with scoring, it's not just monitoring the raters, but also ensuring that the actual scores are released on time to test takers. So that's another side of scoring that is a bit less linguistics related, but more systems. There is a current boom in artificial intelligence rating. So if you're looking into like that area and developing, but more so like computational linguistics and looking into developing AI to rate responses, that is a potential future boom employment area that you can look into. Right now, AI is pretty good with written performance, but not much in the speaking department. So all of our speaking is still human rated. So that is like a big area that probably will blow up in the near future. Aside from that, we also have test delivery and test security. Test delivery is not so much linguistic related. It's essentially just invigilating exams and ensuring no cheating and things like that. So you're working in the exam room with test takers. But for test security, aside from kind of doing ID checks and, you know, making sure no cheating materials goes into the class, into the test centers, there are also kind of investigations that come up when we notice kind of templated material in the responses themselves. So say a person can deliver, I don't know. Oh no, the computer's about to restart. Should I just snooze it?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so say if a person delivered like, you know, a 30-sentence response, 20 of those sentences are like very high proficiency and like 10 of them kind of just there's like a big discrepancy in ability that can generate like a very linguistic related investigation. That's also a pretty cool area to look into. We used to have a colleague that would like go in person into tests, like teaching classes to kind of see what they were teaching students and stuff and potential test takers. So you can get a bit like into the Sherlock Holmes aspect of things with test security, which is kind of cool. If you're not kind of into like the hands-on test operations aspect of things, there's always research. It's definitely kind of more cerebral, more high level. You're looking at standard setting, which is essentially making sure that the rating scale makes sense. What you're saying is a high proficiency response is actually highly proficient. So like, where do you draw the line between somebody who has like weak, medium to like high proficiency? So that's a bit more kind of back end and very academic. Same with research studies. I've known of like research studies joined between CELTIP and IELTS, or like comparing, you know, what's the equivalent of an IELTS 9 with CELTIP 12 or something like that. So things like that to kind of make sure that all the tests are reflecting the same level of proficiency regardless of which test is being taken. And then if you're into teaching, but you don't really want kind of just generic ESL, there's always test prep, which is a bit more niche, where you are preparing students for a specific exam, whether it be CELTIP, IELTS, TOEFL, or any other language proficiency exam. All of my examples are very English specific, but there are exams for like other languages, French, Spanish, who knows? So it doesn't have to be like English specific. And if you don't really want to teach students, but you still want to be in teaching, there's also teaching the teacher. So you can train instructors so that they know what to teach in a test prep class. So yeah. So I've talked about kind of the test products that I'm familiar with. In Canada, aside from IELTS, CELTIP, there's also Pearson's Test of English. I know that test is a bit more AI centric, but could be something to look into. Canada also has the Canada Language Benchmark, C.O.L.D, and that benchmark has a ton of tests related to it. It is kind of, it's used a lot in linked classes, and to kind of assess students' level to enroll them in a language class. Here in Canada, I know the government kind of cut funding on a lot of linked classes recently due to their change to immigration policies. But those assessments are still around. So if you look into any like C.L.B.PT, C.L.B.A, these are all like very similar. So if you're like a trained assessor in one of those tests, chances are you can easily be trained to rate another test in the C.L.B area. So you can kind of expand how many different tests you can rate. Australia. I believe that is all I have for now. But both my work email and my personal emails, I have helped people create applications for TESOL Canada before. So if you want kind of help with that, or if you kind of just want to see what an application can look like, I would be happy to dig out my application wherever it is to show you. But yeah, open to questions.
Yeah. I have some. So you mentioned something as a rater. Is it like an in-person kind of job, or are you like working as a group, or is it more like an online, like telecommute?
I totally, I was caught up with the lack of transition.
Yeah.
It is a work from home position
Okay.
for my company, but it's different depending on the test product. So I know for IELTS, they are expanding their online assessors. But the problem with their test is that even though it's online, it has to be in person online, if that makes sense. So it's like a video call. So if you're assessing somebody, say in China, you have to wake up at like 5 or 4 to do it. So it's, yes, it's work from home, but the hours are a bit tricky. For our tests, all of the test takers speak to their computer and then their recorded response gets rated. So the raters, they work at whatever hour they choose to, whatever hours that they're comfortable with, as long as they like meet the deadline of when the ratings need to be submitted, then yeah, there's no issue. And yeah, forgot about like, we used to be an in-office, like in-person commute to Vancouver kind of workplace. But since COVID, we've become permanently work from home. So yeah, I work from home now too. So right now, Paragon is an entirely work from home company. Unless you're like test delivery, then you do need to be in the test center because we can't monitor test takers. But for kind of research and stuff, it's entirely work from home.
Did you participate in creating, sorry, did somebody else?
Yes.
Oh, no.
So,
I didn't see
yeah,
that.
I was gonna ask if, so you mentioned that the raters are part-time positions, so would the other positions within the company be part-time as well, or are they full-time?
Yeah, depending entirely on the positions. Internal teams were full-time. Usually most of us are permanent full-time too. So history of Paragon, it was born out of UBC. So it was very Canadian centric and for Canada, very like Vancouver centric. So there was like a lot of support to like have this work opportunity be like as advantageous for the employees as possible. We've unfortunately been, I want to say consumed, but not that, acquired by a large US testing company. But they've allowed kind of these policies to be grandfathered in. So Paragon still has a lot of like benefits that perhaps their US counterparts don't have. So internal positions still full-time with like plenty good benefits for individual and family. For raters, they are part-time employees, so they don't get the benefits, but they are, considered employees. For if you say like item writers, people who create test contents or like draw pictures for the test, so audio visuals and things like that, they are considered contractors. And the employment agreement is a bit different for them. Same with like test invigilators, I believe they are also considered a contractor. So it entirely depends on kind of what your position. But for internal team, it is full-time. For kind of more external, it's usually good as like a part-time combined with, if you have like a lot of our raters are either professors or they have like other teaching jobs that they go to. Some of our raters are just retired professors that like just want to keep their brains active. And so they're just like, hey, I'm sitting at home at 7 a.m. Like send me some tests. So there's a wide range. Some people have been with us since the beginning of Paragon, since 2014. And so it's a pretty good gig and it pays pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that hasn't had your work experience or like the co-op or the C.O.L.D certificate? So like now that the C.O.L.D certificate isn't available, what would you recommend that they do in their studies to get to where you are? if they don't have those opportunities?
There are the certificate itself. There are plenty of programs at colleges that are the equivalent. If anything, they might be even better because they are TESOL Canada certified. So you don't even need to jump through the hoop of applying. I know Douglas College has like a TESOL program. So if you just kind of just look online, search for like TESOL programs, they're usually like pretty straightforward. They will provide you with the same like 120 hours of theory plus 20 hours of practicum. So they will meet all of the requirements for you to get a TESOL Canada certified certificate at the end of it. So it doesn't have to be in SFU. That's like not a requirement. I just took it because I was already interested, and I had to like get my credits for other things so I could graduate. But yeah, no, if you've already passed that point and you still want to be, you still want to be kind of in this area, there's that. Work experience, there's plenty. If you are not shy of taking an adventure, there are programs to teach overseas that will grant you ESL teaching experience. There's the JET program that I know of that goes to Japan, right? Even in SFU itself, there are volunteering positions to, I think like Michelle was saying, she was like an EAL.
Yeah, peer educator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like even something volunteering can count as experience and can kind of get you in. And so yeah, it depends on how much research and how much traveling you're willing to do. But I think it's not difficult to get experience in the ESL industry.
I think there's a co-op opportunity. I think it's the talk program where you go to Korea to teach English. One of my friends did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's through like co-op. So you get paid, I believe. I'm not sure, but it's called the talk program. Yeah, so you go to Korea.
Yeah, no, talk, JET.
Yeah.
I know there are some schools, I think it's like EF, where they would to get you like a semester or two in Europe, I would like to say, to teach as well. So there's always like English demands in even more kind of Anglo areas. So yeah,
So you would recommend those to get into something like what you're doing?
I think they would help get you the experience to then get into something like what I'm doing. I'll share kind of with you the requirements to become a rater, and you'll realize like it's not that difficult. You need a BA. You need a TESOL certificate of any kind. If you've satisfied the criteria to be, considered like a TESOL Canada certified, that's all good. And you need 3 years of experience. It's not much, 3 years. So you can combine that with volunteering, tutoring. I don't know, 2 years for a JET program, that's 2 years already. So it's not really all that hard to get 3 years of experience, and you're already in the middle of your BA. So that's it. You get good command of English and you're all set. So it's not really hard. And then once you get kind of that part-time position, then you can kind of use that as like work experience for perhaps other career paths in teaching or not. But it would be like a good kind of source of additional income, perhaps while you're looking for a full-time position.
We don't have any questions in the chat. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much.